So hello fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And is Harvard going to be 100% Asian school at some point in the future? There is a case in front of the Supreme Court filed by Asian students saying that Harvard basically discriminates in a certain way against Asians because of their affirmative action, the things that they do with respect to that. So, of course, this has been brought by a conservative backer who's trying to strike down affirmative action in the legal system. This guy has backed other people, white people, who were saying that affirmative action was against the Constitution, and it was denying them their rights or their likelihood of ending up at these top-tier schools. They failed when they brought it with respect to one white lady, a white potential student at one of these Ivy League schools. And now, of course, they're trying with Asian people to strike down the affirmative action, race-based student selection then. It's not to say that they're picking people because they're black, but race is a component, and the backer wants to strike that down. As it stands right now, or very recently anyway, Harvard had up to 26% of their student body was Asian. So, of course, if the Supreme Court says that using race as a factor at all is wrong and it's unconstitutional, that means that the percentage of Asians is likely to increase from that 26%. Who knows how high it could get? Could it go to 100%? Well, according to a document that was discovered by potential litigants of Harvard, if Harvard only used academic information to select students, for example, like SAT scores, GPAs, and so on, basically Asians would be 43% of the student body. Now that's not 100%, but that is pretty high. Of course, the fact is that Harvard does not only use academic criteria in order to determine who it's going to let into the schools. But still, you never know what could happen with respect to this court case. So it's really interesting. And of course, a lot of the Asian people who are attending these schools, they might be directly have been born in Asia, or their parents may have been born in Asia. So once they become alumni themselves, and they're going to have that avenue of getting into the school, the percentage of Asians at Harvard is likely to increase even more. But of course, that's decades down the line. So the idea is that it could very well be that over the course of several decades, the amount of Asians that are at Harvard could increase to that 43% that document was stating, and beyond that. Now, is that going to be helpful to the Asian community? I don't know. They represent 5% of the population in the U.S. is actually Asian. So they are way overrepresented at Harvard. Obviously, Harvard and a lot of these Ivy League schools are going to be places that Asian people are going to find themselves applying to. And obviously, they've been very successful at getting accepted to these places, Ivy League schools for that matter. One of the interesting things about it is that for the most part, Asian immigrants, meaning the parents, for example, of people who are applying to Harvard, are usually much more educated than American-born parents of potential students at Harvard. And that tends to be a major predictor of how far students themselves actually go. It's based on the highest education that their parents would have achieved. Because one, their parents know how to navigate that path. Their parents can potentially guide them. They know what they've done, so they can guide them. And of course, their parents are going to be wanting their children to follow in their path with respect to education and achievement. One thing that I wanted to note here is that it can often seem that Asian people are incredibly smart because of this high educational achievement of Asian immigrants. But in just reading up a little bit for this piece, I realized a number of things that would potentially make it seem as if Asians are so incredibly smart. One of the things that is never really taken into note is that 60% of the people on the planet are actually Asian. That means almost 2 out of 3 people on the planet are actually Asian. So by rights, in almost any sphere or any field that we think of, Asians should predominate. They should be huge because they're most of the people on the planet, you know. As it is, Asia is not a particularly rich area aside from Japan and maybe Korea to a lesser extent. But yeah, this does. How many people? About 4 point something billion people are in Asia. So if you have that many people and they're all trying to get into the US and the competition is going to be really high and education is a big, you know, they don't call it the brain drain for nothing. People who are highly educated will find an easier path into the US. So you take it that it's most of the people in the world from a particular region trying to get into the US, and the highest education that they achieve is going to help them get into the country. You are getting the best of the best. And there's going to be a lot of other people at every other education level that you can think of. Just so many of these people. And education in that region is really difficult, really tough, very competitive. For some people, it's their only way out of poverty. As a matter of fact, I just read today about a lady who 16 years ago, somebody took her identity and used it to get a good education at the, well, not at, I don't know if it's a specific university, but basically there's a particular exam that you take in China, and if you do really well, that changes your life. You know, like if you're a moderate middle income person from America or anywhere in the world, and then you get to go to Harvard, it changes your life and the life of your kids and so forth. So somebody just basically took over her identity, and they had help from other people. The only way she found out is when she tried to go to study at university and discovered that she had passed the exam really well and somebody else was living the life that was intended for her. Of course, thankfully, the other person, you know, I would imagine, is getting their just desserts, and she reapplied to try to get her education finally. And apparently she was denied at first, but they're saying that they're going to review it. So I don't know if she will get the opportunity that she deserves, but hopefully she does. But that's just an indicator of what can happen in those countries, and why it would seem that there are so many highly educated, competitive people of Asian descent in the US, and probably represented at such, you know, a high level educational level in the Ivy League schools. The fact of the matter is that if If there were no immigration restrictions, and if these Ivy League schools solely based their admissions on academic performance, Asians more than likely could very easily fill up all of the Ivy League schools at 100%, just being 100% Asian Ivy League schools, because there are more than enough highly educated Asians that could fill those spots. And it's just really more than likely limited by the amount of immigrants that can come to the US to take advantage of those spots. And because of legacy and sports scholarships or students who are taken in as a result of sports and legacy and alumni intake. So is Harvard going to be 100% Asian? Even with the court ruling, Harvard probably isn't going to just accept a majority intake of students from Asia. That seems unlikely. However, it probably is very likely that if the stars aligned, there are more than enough Asian students to fill up all of the spots in the Ivy League admittance every year. So anyway, guys, you can wish me Lucks. That's LUCSS. You can unlike, comment, subscribe, and or share. And of course, I don't prefer it, but you can do nothing. Peace.